republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much, Director Dias. Item 3, roll call. Madam Secretary.
Thank you, Madam President. Division 7, Gary Van Dam.
Here.
Division 6, Audrey Miller.
Here.
Division 5, Robert Paris.
Present.
Division 4, Justin Lane.
Here.
Division 3, Frank Donato.
Here.
Division 2, Keith Dias.
Here.
Division 1, Shelley Sorcible.
Here.
General Manager Chisholm.
Here.
Attorney Tilden Kim.
Here.
And Holly Hughes present.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Item number 4, adoption of the agenda. Do I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
I'll make a motion we adopt the agenda. This is Keith.
This is Rob. I'll second the motion.
Roll call vote, please.
Gary Van Dam.
Yes.
Audrey Miller.
Yes.
Robert Paris.
Yes.
Justin Lane.
Yes.
Frank Donato.
Yes.
Keith Dias.
Yes.
Shelley Sorcible.
Yes. Item number 5, public comment period. If there's anybody that wishes to address the board, now would be the time. Okay, item number 6, new business. Do we have any new business?
No.
Okay, item 7, consent calendar. Do I have a motion to accept the consent calendar?
I move we accept the consent calendars, Frank.
This is Audrey. I'll second.
Roll call vote, please.
Gary Van Dam.
Yes.
Audrey Miller.
Yes.
Robert Paris.
Yes.
Justin Lane.
Yes.
Frank Donato.
Yes.
Keith Dias.
Yes.
Shelley Sorcible.
Yes, thank you. Item 8, items for consideration and possible action. Item 8, A and B. Director Paris.
Yes, I'll turn this over to our General Manager, Dwayne.
Yes, be happy to provide a presentation. You want to cue that up? Not quite that. Not yet. Okay. Okay, if you could move those out of the way so we can see the full screen, that'd be great. Thank you. Okay, great. This item here is the first item that we're going to discuss is a conceptual approval of the water service agreements and rules and regulations. Avek has struggled over the last many years to modify their existing rules and regulations, and it's been on our to-do list for many years. And through the hard work of the legal committee and the staff, we've been able to draft a draft set of rules and regulations and corresponding water service agreements. And what we'd like to do tonight is outline, the path moving forward, describe the water service agreements, and get conceptual approval for moving those forward. And eventually we'll, hopefully by the end of the year, have new water service agreements in the new format. So let's start. So the proposed water service agreements is basically it's an agreement between the agency and the customer with regards to water service, and it provides a considerable amount of information to both protect the customer and the agency. Some of the major components are the terms and the conditions of the service, the release of liability to protect the agency, some customer information so we know who the water service agreement's for, water use guidelines for non-potable water use. This is a new section that you will see, and then the conditions of approval for the water service, and those would be specific to each particular water service agreement. And then conceptual design of the service and turnout, legal description of the property. And we'll go into a little more detail on those here. If you want to put up that water service agreement, Holly.
Okay.
Thank you very much. And we're going to kind of scroll through this slowly for you. You can see what we have here is a draft water service agreement for an M&I untreated non-potable water user. There's 4 different types of water service agreements. The basic boilerplate format is the same for all 4, but there are particular differences between the various types of water that are used. We have M&I we have agriculture untreated water, which is used for irrigation purposes, and then we also have a water service agreement for a retail water agency and then individual landowners. So there's 4 different types, but they all contain the basic same information. And so as you look, we scroll down here a little bit, it talks, this first page just really talks about the terms and the conditions of supplying the water, describes the property that it's intended to use, and also provides a location of where we can locate the equipment and so forth. You want to move down a little bit farther. And then talks, this next couple of paragraphs talk with regards to, if there's insufficient water to meet the water requirements, we can reduce water to the customer. And then the customer may also install their own service line from the facilities to points within the property that are outlined in the legal description. We're not allowing any water to be plumbed outside of the property that the customer service agreement is with. So we'll move on to the next page.
Oh, slow down.
Sure.
So is this like for rural? Let's say like Leona Valley, where one person comes and gets a meter, and then he goes out and becomes a water company, starts subbing it out to everybody else?
Right. That we would prohibit that from occurring.
I thought we already had that in agreement.
We have properties that do that now, but we're in the new rules and regulations and the new water service agreements would not allow that to occur. We still have to address these issues that we have out there, particularly in Leona Valley. We are working on ways in which to address those so that all the parcels have their own water meter and their own water supply.
And they would have to plumb it in a way that at their expense?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
I have one more question. And what about out there in that also would apply to those people out of Munce Ranch Road that is non-potable water that
Right.
Thought they were drinking artesian water out of the aqueduct? What happened?
Yeah.
Is that apply to them too?
it will apply to them too. And I have some exhibits that'll help describe that. As, they're coming up here. So if we go to the next page, Holly, this page primarily, if you want to raise it up a little bit, this talks about all the releases that are required. This protects the agency from protects our liability, and this has been gone through by the attorney's office and meets all of those requirements. If you go to the next page, keep going down. Yeah, you can see here there's a couple of releases that are highlighted here. One's for concerning. Excuse me. You might have had something to say. Okay. Those include the notice release concerning water pressure hazards, so that if we deliver at a high pressure, they install a pressure reduction valve that's on the customer, not on Avek, and releases us from any liability. And then if you move down here, this is a new section that talks about non-potable water use guidelines and best management practices. And this is a new section that was added to cover those areas as we described out there on Munce Ranch Road. And then we also have the notice of release concerning driveways and for Avek's damage for whatever reason there may be with regards to that. And then the next section is associated with conditions of approval. And this is a new section to the water service agreement. But what it does is allows the agency to put specific conditions on the water service agreement to address specific requirements that the agency would want to have. And this is particularly important for the Leona Valley and the Munce Ranch Road folks, but it also could apply to agricultural use water, and also there could be some operational characteristics with regards to some of our retail water agencies that might include conditions of approval. And then we have a privacy disclosure and then a signature block if you move down to the other sections. So that's the, those are very standard, very consistent with all the water service agreements that we've moved forward. But I wanted to move on to the next page and show you some of the exhibits. And this is where we get into more detail. These are just samples of a water service agreement under Exhibit A. This would give you an idea of what the actual turnout would look like, what the flow is, what the pressure is, and where the meters would be located within the vault that's part of the project. The next exhibit, if you go to the next exhibit there, this provides a legal description. As you can see here, this is a typical meets and bounds type of description that you would have that really identifies the property that's receiving the water service agreement. And then if you can go to the next slide there, you move up here a little bit. This kind of shows a map of where that. Keep going up here. Yeah, you can zoom out a little bit. But what this does is just shows you a little idea of that box under Exhibit C there. That's kind of the location of where it is, and you can see that that's blue line is an attempt at an aqueduct, and its relationship. And so you'd have a little map that's associated with that to show exactly where that legal description is associated with. And this is just provided as a sample. Go ahead to the next page. And this one's of particular interest. And this is an example of what would occur in a non-potable water connection. If you can see, now let me see if I can provide some, see if I can, I just need to have this thing work here. No, I guess it's not working. Yeah, well, I'll go ahead and just talk it through. You can see at the very top of the page, it says non-potable water main line. So this would be where you'd have a water main line, and then This non-potable water would then connect up to a valve and a meter that would go to the non-potable water use area. And this would be clearly defined in the site map showing where the non-potable water could be used. And then the conditions of approval would contain language with regards to providing signs on hose bibs and in areas that would be appropriate to notify not only the residents, but any visitors or anybody that would come across these water lines to identify them as non-potable irrigation system. If you move down a little bit here, this is a depiction of the potable water system that where you would locate, we would show on the site map the location of the water well, the water tank, where that water is, and identify where the potable hose water pipes are, and the use of those. And then you'd have some custom water system agency conditions of approval, and a little legend for the map. And if you go to the next page there, we would get into, as part of Exhibit C, this is where you get to the text of the conditions of approval. And you could see here, there's a sample, and you can scroll down a little bit. And it would, have anywhere from 1 to 5 to as many as was necessary in order to make sure that the water supply agreement really addresses whatever the particular issues that the agency and the customer may have with regards to providing water service to that land or facility, as the case may be. So that's kind of what the water service agreement looks like. Is there any questions about that? Hearing none, I'll move on to.
Wait, I'm sorry, I was muted. Sorry.
Okay.
Dwayne, does this have anything to do? This is strictly, is this purveyors or just our general non-purveyor agreement?
Well, we have a water service agreement for purveyors, which is going to be a little different than non-purveyor agreements in that the conditions of service would be different.
So has that been looked at?
Yes, it has been looked at.
Because I haven't heard anything regarding a commitment of when they order their water every year.
Could you repeat that, Frank? I don't think I got the whole.
Okay, well, we had a lot of discussion that when they put in their order, if they take it, they're still going to pay for it if they don't use it. There was supposed to be a review on that.
Yes, that's being that particular review is being handled through the Water Rates Committee. And
okay.
That'll be in the water rates discussion that we'll have hopefully in the next month or so.
Okay.
Okay. And yeah, go back to the presentation. Okay. So let's see. Let's get back to where we were here. Let's see. So trying to identify the process that we're going through here in getting conceptual approval of the plan to move forward. And what we've had completed so far is we've had the legal committee review with the program and is recommended moving forward with conceptual approval by the board. We've had the water service agreements and the rules regulations reviewed by the attorney's office. What we're seeking tonight is conceptual approval by the board, and then we are anticipating having 3 public meetings, one with water purveyors, one with landowners that would use non-potable and potable water, and then with our purveyors also. Taking any input that they may have into the water service agreements, making some final revisions, next back to the committee for recommendations to the board, and then ultimately having the board approve the final versions of the rules and regulations and the water service agreements, and then we would commence to reissue all the water service agreements. So that's kind of our plan, and our hope is to get this accomplished by the end of the year through the complete process. I'd be happy to answer any questions that the board members may have.
Thank you, Dwayne, for the presentation and approval of Order 8A1. This is Rob.
Do we have a second?
I'll second the motion. This is Keith.
Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Gary Van Dam,
Yes.
Audrey Miller,
Yes.
Robert Paris,
Yes.
Justin Lane, Justin, Frank Donato,
Yes.
Keith Dias,
Yes.
Shelley Sorcible.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Yes, I made it.
Thank you, Justin.
Okay, item 8A2, Director Paris.
Yes, and I'll turn this over to Dwayne too. Thank you.
Yes, Assistant General Manager Matt Knudsen provided a presentation on this particular matter.
We can't hear.
Yeah, move it up closer.
We can't hear anything.
Is that better? Yeah? Okay, I'd like to turn your attention to page 76 of your agenda packet. We have a brief staff report on this item. And we're going to be talking about the proposed 2020-2021 organizational structure for the agency. So just a little background. You probably recall back in December of 2019, staff presented to the board and the board approved an organizational structure at that time to develop a water banking and maintenance division within the operations department. And the primary driver and purpose of that was to develop a team that would focus on operating and maintaining existing water bank facilities and the proposed high desert water bank, as well as perform maintenance activities throughout the agency. So that was approved by the board in December of 2019. And now we're here this evening to present a couple of tweaks to organizational structure that we can include in the proposed 2020-2021 budget. So first,
Can everybody mute themselves?
Yeah, can you please mute it? Wow.
yeah, okay. So first, I'd like to focus on two positions that were approved in 2019. And as we said, we would include the funding for those positions in the new fiscal budget. Those positions are currently not filled. They include a well and pump maintenance technician and a maintenance technician 1/2. So our proposal is to still proceed with that plan and fund these positions in the new budget. You can see them highlighted in green on the org chart. They would be within the new maintenance division. And since December of 2019, we're following the plan as far as staffing that department with existing employees. We've made a couple of promotions and transfers from existing employees to this new division, and that worked out really well. We got some qualified folks in those key positions, but now we're ready to expand a little bit. So we're seeking approval to fund those two positions, well and pump technician and maintenance technician. You can see that they're highlighted in green. Next slide, please. Okay, the next position also was discussed and planned for in December of 2019, and this is to begin staffing the new high desert water bank. So at that time, we proposed over the development of the project, there would be 4 positions dedicated to that new facility. At this time, we're only requesting funding in the new fiscal budget for 1 position, and that position is the lead operator. As you know, we're well underway with the design of that project, and we're going to see more and more activity in the field, gathering data during the design, as well as moving into construction phase. And we think it's important to get this lead operator position filled and involved with the project early on so they can have input into the design and operation of the facility and also be aware of how the facility is constructed. This position will also be key to helping our engineering department oversee the construction activity once they get going out there. So that's the second position. It also was planned for in 2019, as I said.
Wait, I have a question.
Yes.
Okay, so I know we're going to need these people. We have no construction going on. I mean, we're not going to have construction probably for a good year.
Yeah, it'll actually be soon. Some construction will be sooner than that, as they're collecting data as part of the engineering phase. You know, it's going to take some time to fill.
I couldn't hear you.
It'll take some time to get this position filled. This won't be filled within the next 2 months. It's probably going to take a little bit of time and be filled, 6 months out potentially is what we're planning for. And then it's going to take, some time to get them up to speed and have them involved with the project before construction starts. We're just planning ahead and making sure we have the funding to be able to fill the position when we have the need.
Yeah, but I don't have it in front of me. We should have a copy, or you should show us the construction schematic timeline of the project. I don't think anything really starts when it comes to physical construction until about 22.
Yeah. Well, if you recall on the project, we have it broke up into various stages, and stage 1 will occur in 2020, late this year, early 2021, where we'll begin developing some early stage recharge up to 20,000 acre feet per year and develop test wells as part of our hydrogeology work. So
I know, I understand that, but we're still not. Everything's been delayed, and then we're talking about some other things going on here regarding, I think we should take a look at when is. If they're going to start January 2022 physically, are these going to be engineers, draftsmen? You're not talking about somebody who's inspecting the project. Are these certified engineers? What are we talking about?
No, this position is a maintenance and operator position for the agency. It's a lead operator.
We don't have any maintenance. That's what I'm trying to figure out. We're not going to have any maintenance for a year and a half.
Well, Frank, we will be putting water in that water bank under the initial stages early next year.
Yeah, but we don't need them. You can use them. You switch it back and forth between that and the Ritter project. It's not like we're putting tens of thousands of acre feet in the ground. We put 20. That's nothing. We put 50,000 acre feet of water with the existing employees we have. I'm not saying we shouldn't do it. I'm just saying I don't like the type of presentation I'm hearing because it's not compatible with the timeline of when this project gets off the ground. is John in the room? I mean, John, have we ever put 50,000 acre feet of water in the ground per year? Hello?
Yeah, I'm making my way to the podium. Yeah, the most we've put in the ground is 70,000 in 1 year at Westside Water Bank. So this position, just to be clear, this position is going to be a lead operator, High Desert Water Bank. When we start banking water, which should be either late 2020 or early 2021, we do need a staff member out. We don't have current staff that can split their time like that. We do need at least somebody out there to monitor that banking and to be part of that project. And also keep in mind that this position would be mostly funded by Metropolitan. This is part of the operation of that project. We just want the position created, and when Dwayne and Matt feel that it's appropriate, then we want to fill it. We want to be ready to fill it when needed.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, John. And then moving on, if there's
can I make one more statement too? Your presentation is good, but you left out a very important component there, that the majority was going to be funded by MWD. I didn't hear that in any of the presentation.
Yeah, I apologize.
No, it's not yours. I mean, this is a critiquing thing. Nobody's fault, but that really helps us when we're putting budgets together and making these decisions. That our partners helping out too.
Yeah, I thought that was assumed because it's dedicated to High Desert. Everybody knows we're getting refunded from Metropolitan for that work or effort. So moving on, no question on that. Next slide, please. And then this position, engineering position, was not included in the proposal from 2019. So this is something new that's come about. As you know, we're seeing more and more projects for the agency. We have an engineering staff of 2 currently. Once High Desert Water Bank gets kicked off and it's in full speed, we're going to see an increased workload for our current engineering manager. His time is really going to be dedicated towards that project. So we feel the need to start planning for an additional engineering position that will be able to take on some of that additional workload. Also, as you know, the current engineering manager handles a lot of the IT-related tasks for the agency, and we think it'd be good to beef up that department and shift some of those routine IT-related tasks over to this new position. So what we're proposing tonight is get concept approval from the board to add this position, and then we would most likely request funding for 6 months of the new fiscal year budget towards this position. That would give us time to develop a clear job description and list of duties, and then seek approval to fund that position. So those are the revisions that we're proposing this evening. Again, this is supported by the Legal Personnel Committee as well as staff, and this will help us develop the new fiscal year budget and get things in line so we can bring back the funding side of it to the board at the budget workshop. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, if there's no questions, do I have a motion?
This is Rob. I'll move approval of Board Order 882.
I'll second the motion. This is Keith.
Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Gary Van Dam,
Yes.
Audrey Miller,
Yes.
Robert Paris,
Yes.
Justin Lane,
Yes.
Frank Donato,
Yes.
Keith Dias,
Yes.
Shelley Sorsable.
Yes. Does that conclude your report, Director Harris?
It does. Thank you.
Thank you. Item 8B, Delta Conveyance Committee, Director Dias.
Yes, thank you, Madam President. The Delta Conveyance Committee met last Wednesday, and we discussed a possible water transfer between Avek and Five Lions operations. And I believe our Assistant General Manager, Knudsen, has a presentation for us.
Thank you, Director Dias.
I'm going to mute everybody just so you know, because we get a lot of background feed here. So if you guys want to speak, any of the directors, please unmute yourself. Thanks.
Sounds like Wall Kingdom.
Good evening. There's a staff report on page 80 of your board packet. As Director Dias mentioned, this is a proposed term sheet to do a common landowner transfer between Avek and Five Lions operation in the amount of 7,000 acre feet of Avek's 2020 Table A water. This item was presented to the committee, and they support the approval of the term sheet. Five Lions is a recently new property owner here in the Antelope Valley, and that he also has a pretty large ag operation up in Kern County Water Agency boundary. So this common landowner transfer would allow Avek to transfer up to 7,000 acre feet of Table A water to Five Lions or to Kern County Water Agency for the benefit of Five Lions within their service area. It's very common, as you know, we've done various common landowner transfers with Homer in the past, and they've worked out very well. It's a common agreement that the Department of Water Resources deals with on a regular basis. So we feel very confident about the process to get this approved. The terms of the agreement, as I mentioned, 7,000 acre feet. They would compensate the agency $325 per acre feet per acre foot. The total amount payment to the agency is $2,275,000, and that would be payable upon all agreements being executed. Attached to the staff report on page 81 of your packet is the term sheet. It's pretty straightforward. It goes through the terms I mentioned. In addition to the payment to Avek, Five Lions will be responsible for all additional costs associated with transferring this water to Kern County Water Agency. That includes the variable costs within the state water project, and Kern County has a small, I think it's $5 per acre foot charge to do this type of transfer with them. So Five Lions would be responsible for all costs on top of the $325 to Avek. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve 8B1?
Motion that we approve the motion AB1, Mr. Director Lane.
Thank you. Second?
This is Director Miller. I'll second.
Thank you. Do we have any questions or discussion?
Yeah, was this a permanent transfer, Matt, or what? Was this lease water or?
No, this is imported water. This is what's called Table A State Water Project water. It's a one-time transfer of 7,000 acre feet from Avek's Table A water for the year 2020. So it'd be a one-time transfer from Avek to Five Lions.
Were 5 Lines using it here in the valley or in Kern County?
They own property in both service areas of Avek and Kern County, and that's why we're able to do it under a common landowner transfer.
Okay, roll call vote, please.
Gary Van Dam,
Yes.
Audrey Miller,
Yes.
Robert Harris,
Yes.
Justin Lane,
Yes.
Frank Donato, Frank Donato.
Yes, I thought go ahead. Sorry.
Sorry, you can unmute yourself.
Yeah.
Keith Dias, Keith Dias,
Yes.
Shelley Sourceable.
Yes, and I commend staff for putting this deal together and taking advantage of the extra table A that we had this year, providing the agency $2.2 million this year. Okay, item number 9, old business.
We have no old business?
Okay, item 10, general manager's report.
Yes. This is the general manager's report for June 9th, 2019. The first item I want to provide a little presentation on is the COVID-19 compliance plan. As you know, let me move this up. Oh, there it is. Okay. I'm not doing it, so. On March 19th, we had the stay-at-home order that was issued by the state public health officials. Excuse me. And the essential workers were allowed to continue with their job functions, and Avek is an essential function. And as we're modifying these stay-at-home orders and things are beginning to open up, it's really important that the agency take steps to protect our workers who will have more exposure outside of their public employment, and also the public as they begin to enter buildings and we have more contact. So the agency uses KJS Health and Safety. That's a consultant that provides all of our OSHA training and health and safety issues, accident investigations, all those, and it's been working with the agency for many years. And we asked them to take the OSHA recommended guidelines and to develop a compliance plan per those guidelines for Avek so that we can have a safe workplace and be in compliant with the guidelines. So therefore, he has completed that task. And so what it looks like is the compliant plan includes the following subsections: work site specific plan for each work site, topics for employee training, and that'll be conducted by our consultant, individual control measures and screening, cleaning and disinfection protocols, and physical distancing guidelines. Work specific plan highlights establish, what they do is they establish a written plan. So we have a written plan for each site where people are stationed. We'll go through a risk assessment of all the work areas, and our consultant will provide that for us. We'll designate a person inside each at each site to implement the plan. We're going to evaluate our work space compliance. If we do have any COVID-19 illnesses, we want to determine what factors there are and if anything's work related, and make some isolations if that should be required. And then, not yet. And then we want to make sure that we take the steps to isolate those individuals. Yes, go ahead. And topics for the employee training highlights is we want to inform about prevention, all of our employees, how to screen at home, and including temperature checks, inform of possible symptoms, and important frequency of hand washing, physical distancing, face covering that we're all aware of. So those will all be part of the training highlights for employees. Next. And then we'll have some individual control measures. We're going to provide temperature and symptom screenings of all workers at the start of their shifts and any personnel that's entering the facility. Able to provide all the protective equipment, the face masks, the gloves, hand sanitizers that's required. And then we work, most of the workers will have face covering available to wear when they're at work. And we'll try and take responsible measures to remind everyone that they should be using their face coverings when they're not in their office and working amongst other employees. Next time. On the cleaning and disinfection section, we'll go through some cleaning of the high traffic areas, both by regular employees and also our janitorial staff. We'll avoid sharing phones and supplies whenever we can. We want to make sure that we got the inventory of the supplies that are necessary and that we're using the proper chemicals to comply with that. The next section is this has to do with the physical distancing guidelines. And we're trying to make sure that we're at least 6 feet apart whenever we can. We are planning to use some floor markings and signage. We have the good thing about Avek, at least in the administrative offices and even in the field offices, they're fairly isolated, and the 6 foot distancing is pretty easy to achieve. But when we do have staff meetings or other types of things, we've reduced some of the chairs in the meeting rooms in order to keep people sufficiently far apart as we go through that. We have directional hallways and passages and designate routes of entry and exit. And limit the number of employees at an office at one time. We don't have that same issue here because of the individual offices. And then we're trying to do as many things as we can by phone and internet as we move forward. So next item. So that covers the plan in outline form. Right now it's in a draft form, and we'll be finalizing it and distributing it to the employees and implementing the plan.
I have a couple questions.
Sure.
Yeah, because it doesn't state it there. I mean, what has to be done, and it's a complete joke. I mean, how do you keep 2 employees 6 feet apart when they're installing a small meter or repairing a pipe? Are we going to hire a crane on every project so only one guy's in the hole and the crane's bringing down the pipe? I mean, this is absolutely ridiculous. That's number one. Number two, this should be a policy. Forget about the China virus. This should be applicable to anybody who's sick. What happens when the Brazilian orangutan disease hits in about 2 years? Are we going to write another policy? I mean, I believe this thing should be directed to anybody who's sick, of any kind of disease. And we all know, I mean, let's be sensitive here, or not sensitive, let's be smart here, that everybody has said that there's more people who die of the common cold than the China virus. So are we going to not, we're not, so if somebody comes in coughing up, speeding up and everything else, we're not going to check them? I don't understand. I mean, I don't understand what this is about. This should apply to everything. It deals with anything How are we going to know it's a China virus? Are we going to send everybody home that's got a cold? I mean, this is stuff we need to answer.
Yes. So to answer your specific question, with regards to these guidelines that OSHA has provided, they can apply to just about any illnesses. So, for example, when we do the temperature screening, as employees come in every day, if they have a temperature, then they will be requested to go home.
That's what I'm saying. That's exactly what I'm saying. So we're going to lose, sometimes during the winter, we could lose 1/3 of our freaking force. I mean, this is absolutely crazy. I mean, this is not a joke. I'm not making this up. It will happen. You got people that come in with, 100-degree temperatures, 99-degree temperatures. What is it? You didn't mention what the temperature break was.
Well, I don't have the specifics for you. I'm just trying to give you the outlines. But yes, if they meet a certain threshold, that's yet to be determined what that would be. The guidelines indicate that you would send those persons home until such time as that fever is broken and within the acceptable range.
Okay, so that one we're not going to decide tonight, but this one I want you to answer this one. I see many of our AVAC workers, two in the cabin, the front seat. I see it all the time. We do have one sit back in the back. They're not 6 feet. Those cars ain't 6 feet apart inside the cabin.
Agreed.
I'm saying is I'm getting two sides of the story here. I understand 6 feet. Somebody comes in, wants to pay a bill or get a chemist test or water check. But what are you going to do with the employees? As far as I'm concerned, I don't have a problem sitting next to one another. But you know what? That's not what it says in this outline.
Right.
Am I right or wrong?
You're correct. The goal is to maintain a 6-foot separation. That is.
So how are you going to do that when the driver's on one side and the passenger employees on the other side, and they got to go out and do some field work?
Well, we won't be able to do it during those periods when we have two people in a vehicle, but whenever we can, we'll try and have one person per vehicle so that we can maintain that separation. And it's not going to be perfect. These are guidelines, and we're trying to comply with them the best that we can in order to protect the workers and the public. And I have no illusions that there won't be, there won't be interactions and people that are closer than 6 feet apart at some point or another. But we're trying to maintain these standards as much as possible so that we can protect our employees.
I have a question. This is Director Sorsable. When do you anticipate having this program up and running?
We hope to have it up and running in the next week, I would think. We just did get the temperature, just got the temperature things in. And so we'll be able to institute that portion of it. We've got some markings on the floor to institute that portion. We will have to have the employee training over the next several weeks. And we have been doing some of these things with regards to the sanitation and the cleanup as part of the original program that Avek had moving forward. So
the consultant's already given you guidelines on what need to be done? Because it sounded to me like this is an outline of what they were going to tell us needed to be done. But are you saying they're telling us what?
The consultant has given us a draft report of that we're reviewing right now. But because of the need to implement this as quickly as possible to comply with the OSHA guidelines, we're presenting it to the board now. We'll have a few, there'll be a few tweaks, a few specifics that'll need to be addressed as we work through the program. But yes, I think we're planning to work on it through this, and as the relaxing occurs and things change, we'll change the program appropriately.
Okay, but I think we should also have the personnel committee look at this.
I agree, 100%. I'm telling you right now, if you put this in writing, it's going to open us up for a lawsuit.
Okay.
So if we could get personnel meeting scheduled as soon as you are able, that you have all the information, or we may already have one scheduled that we can insert this into, just to, have the committee take a look at it as well.
Sure.
Well, I think they need to check with OSHA or somebody and say, what do we do with the employees that got to be in a hole working together? Are we going to put them in space suits?
Well,
I mean, come on.
Wherever practicable is what they're probably going to say.
Well, that's not what it says here. And you know what? When you put something in writing, when it's black and white, that's not what it says. It didn't say that.
Okay, well, we'll move it on to the personnel committee and we can discuss it further.
Thank you very much.
Okay. All right.
Dwayne, this is Rob. I just want to thank you for the report. I'm very supportive of this, as you know. And I think the reverse of what Frank thinks. I think if we don't take this action, we will invite lawsuits. So thank you for moving this along.
Well, I disagree with you, Rob, because I have friends right now that are working on things just like this in larger organizations, and they're having a problem with it because it does not spell out specifics. You're saying you're approving that we're going to go hire a crane, only put one person in a truck, and we're going to go buy another 10 more cars for them to work?
You might want to agree to disagree on this one.
Well, I'm just telling you, that's what you're saying. We need to go buy 10 more cars. Exactly what this thing was presented as tonight, we got to go buy 10 more cars.
Well, we might have to, Frank, to comply with OSHA's requirements. So
OSHA, you know what? Maybe somebody needs to challenge them. We only spend, $400,000 a year for Aqua to defend us? Something's wrong here.
Well, we'll take a deeper dive.
Yeah, I'm gonna say I'm done.
What?
Overreaction. I think that the agency going out and there's this whole thing. There's more flu deaths every year than there is, COVID. I think that having this stuff needs to be looked at a lot more in depth than having things in writing right now.
I don't exactly understand what you mean by that. Could you explain a little bit more, please?
What I'm saying is that these guidelines and everything could be used for any sickness, we've been going by the last 100 years of, if an employee walks in, he's hot outside and he has a temperature, are you going to send him home because he has a 99 temperature outside?
That's what I'm saying.
That's what I'm saying. Your body temperature changes as you're working, you're coming into summertime, and an employee walks in, he's been working outside, and his body temperature is 99.9, and it says anybody who has a 99.6 temperature, has a fever, they need to go home. We're going to lose, employees who aren't even sick. I think this needs to be looked at a lot more in depth than what we're looking at right now.
Explanation, and that's what we'll do at the committee level and get back to the board. Does that sound good to everyone?
Sounds good to me.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, Holly, you want to move the slides? Okay. From the state weather, we can see that our Feather River region has highs in the mid 70s and 80s. We had fairly low humidity, cooling temperatures. We don't get much precipitation during this particular period. We're anticipating for about an inch of rain for the whole month. Next slide. What's more important is to monitor the Lake Oroville and San Luis reservoir conditions. You can see from the two bar graphs that the total capacity is about 67%. 80% is what the average is. We're at about 80% of our historical average with regards to San Luis. and total capacity is 61% of the reservoir capacity. So we're a little bit below the red line, but certainly nothing to work out too terribly at the present time. Next slide. If we look at our treatment plant flow, we're running between 30 to 31 million gallons a day over the last week. And you can see the various numbers here with regards to that. We would anticipate this increasing over the next several months as we run into the summer season. Next one. As far as geopurification goes, we're looking at totals of about 8.9 million gallons a day with regards to the flow going out of the water bank, and that's going both to the Mojave and the west side or 80th and H area, and then we have a little bit of bench ranch for testing those wells. So we're running about a little over 10 million gallons a day coming from our geopurification processes. Next slide. As far as storage goes, the only storage that we're doing at the present time is on the east side water bank. Everything else is off at the present time. Go ahead. Wanted to give you an opportunity to go over the May activities report. And as you know, we've developed this there's a staff report in your packet that highlights this, but we wanted to provide a little bit of background for you as far as groundwater basin stewardship. Some of the things we did last month, there was the Eastside Water Bank expansion project was approved. This will allow the agency eventually to have close to 9,000 additional acre feet of storage on the High Desert Water Bank. The Tejon Ranch well pump test and final hydrology report was completed and being reviewed by the design team. Our hydrology and geotechnical teams are preparing a coordinated site plan, and we're continuing with land acquisition. Next slide. As far as water reliability, we provided updates and issuance of the incidental take permits and long-term operations of the State Water Project. The asset replacement and capital improvement program was reviewed by the Capital Improvement Committee. Bids were collected on our chemicals for 2021. Our rules and regulations were reviewed, and our standardized water service agreement, which you got a presentation on tonight, and then Phillips Rocket Site Pump Station is currently under rehabilitation. Next slide. As far as THMs go, you can see that all of our second quarter THMs were collected, and we remained below the 64 parts per billion. And the microsynthesis, or whatever it's called, is being tested and being within the system here in Avek. That's important. We've had non-detects in the past. That's what we anticipate. And then staff is at full staff moving forward. So next slide.
I got a question. Can you go back for a second? Can you educate me on this? I didn't know you could collect THMs. Don't you collect the water to test it to see if it has THMs?
You're correct. You're absolutely correct.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. I misspoke there. I wish we could collect THMs.
Yeah, I don't know. I thought that'd be quite easy.
Yeah, it'd be a lot easier if we just collected, but no, we can't. You're correct. We have to test for them. As far as financial integrity goes, we had our letter of credit renewed with Wells Fargo. We hired Brown Armstrong was selected as the agency's audit firm for 2019 and 20. And the third quarter revenue expense report shows that the agency is currently on budget and doing very well for this fiscal year. We did receive word that we received our grants for the SNP Phase 2 and for the Roseman Intertie, and we're continuing to work on SNP funding Phase 2 through the Act and the grant there. Then we're also tracking and identifying new potential grant funding sources as part of the federal process. And we're working to complete the preliminary budget for fiscal year 2021. Next page. Under human resource stewardship, we have agency-wide compensation study is currently underway. We anticipate a draft on that in the next week or two. We talked about the organizational chart tonight, and then recommendations were made for budget approval for all the full-time positions, as you've discussed tonight. And the employee leave sharing program is being developed, and we have no COVID-19 related illnesses were reported. And as far as communication activities, we did distribute a press release that went through the protocol that we've developed for our communications plan for the JPIA workplace safety. The agency did authorize participation in the Aqua JPIA Safety Awards Program. The spring employee newsletter was finalized. The agency's first customer newsletter is being developed. And we made a request to the 25th District Congressman Mike Garcia to provide a letter of support for the SNP Phase 2 to the Secretary of the Interior. Letters were sent to legislators in support of the Infrastructure Act of 2020 and the Drinking Water Infrastructure Act of 2020. And we requested provisions to make SNP and other AVEC capital projects eligible for grant funding, federal grant funding, I should say. Next slide. And as far as regulatory updates, as we mentioned, we have two bills that are on the state Senate legislative calendar under the general orders. They provide about $19.5 billion in water infrastructure, and those are the American Water Infrastructure Act, which is $17 billion, and the Drinking Water Infrastructure Act, which is $2.5 billion. As far as the schedules and events, we have some virtual meetings, Urban Water Institute and the Aqua Summer Conference on the 29th and 30th. And then our Water Master Board meeting is 6/24. And my schedule is I plan to be in the office till the next board meeting and have no plans to be out of the office. And I think that concludes the general manager's report. I have one other item to discuss, and that has to do with the agency electronic communication policy. And we'll go on to the next slide. If you remember, back when we approved the policy for, what was it?
April 21st.
Yeah, what was the title for that?
Guidelines for policy guidelines for directors.
Yeah, policy guidelines for directors. And part of that, we included a recommendation from our attorney's office on with regards to how to communicate, directors' communications. And one of them had made a recommendation to only use email addresses that are associated with Avek, avek.org. Next slide. So it was, as Holly mentioned, that was approved on April 21st, 2020. It established the policy under Section 17 concerning the use of private email accounts for agency business. Next slide. And this is, you can see this is where this policy is located. It's under use of private email accounts in agency business. Next slide. And delve into the policy itself. It says use of private email accounts to conduct agency business is prohibited. That's highlighted in red. And then all agency business related emails received by a member of the board in their private email account must be forwarded to the agency email address, and all agency business related to emails sent by the board must be sent to the agency email address. So if you are to receive something that has to do with business, you need to forward it on to the account that's associated with Avek. Next slide. This is the memo that talks about that from the attorney's office. Next slide. And I won't read this to you, but basically it says the same thing I've just told you. Moving forward. Next slide. So the next steps, and this is really the heart of the matter, is in July 2020, both myself and the board secretary will be using your avec.org accounts to send and relay messages to you. And if you should need a separate device or would wish to have a separate device to receive those emails, whether that be another phone or a tablet of some sort, the agency can provide that for you. And then we forwarded out a handout that outlines the steps to set up an email on your personal devices if you'd like to do that. And we do want to make sure that we have available to you, if you have any troubles whatsoever, just go ahead and contact our IT expert and engineering manager, Justin Lipsey, and he'll help you program your own device or set up a new one for you. You can come into the office here and bring it with you, and he'll be able to help you with all of those kinds of arrangements should you need to do that. But we're trying to implement the policy and wanted to provide that information for you tonight. Happy to answer any questions you may have on that.
This is Director Sourceable. I just want to make something clear to everybody, is that from now on, or actually as of July 1st, when Holly or Dwayne or any members of the staff send the director's emails, it's going to go to your AVAC emails. So if you're not doing this process and having the AVAC email forwarded to your Outlook or whatever it is that you use, you will not see your messages unless you go onto the AVAC mail server. So there's ways to have your emails forwarded, and you can also reply using your AVAC email from one main, like I do it in Outlook. So we need to make sure that we do that so that we don't lose communication with you. Any questions or comments?
Director Van Dam, I had 2 comments. Have we closed escrow and tranche yet with S-Power?
Gary, can we address that in a minute? Because we're talking about the email addresses right now.
Oh, okay. Yes.
Sorry. Okay, so does anybody have any questions about the situation with our emails? Because it's, coming up quick. Okay, great. Go ahead, Gary.
That concludes.
Just wondering, in regards to bid tranche, have we closed escrow with S-Power yet?
We have not, but we are meeting with S-Power tomorrow, and we anticipate closure of that in the next couple of weeks at the outset.
Okay. And when was our advisory meeting for the Water Master?
Hello, this is Matt. It was scheduled for June 16th, but I believe I heard today that they are thinking about moving it to the 17th. It hasn't been confirmed yet, but we'll be sure to get that out to the board members when it is confirmed.
Thanks, Matt.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chisholm, for your report. Item number 11, director's reports. Do we have any directors that would like to make a report on anything? Item 12, attorney report.
Yes, this is Tilden Kim. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. Just two items to discuss. Number one, since the last board meeting that I attended, I circulated to staff model form documents for competitively bid public works projects. And so these are comprehensive new set of documents for notice of inviting bids, including submission of electronic bids, new bid sheets, new contract provisions, new general and special provisions, as well as new forms for bonds. So this is based upon some model documents that our firm has been working on for a number of years. So it's very comprehensive and it's very dense. So I wanted to give staff enough lead time in advance of any major projects that are coming up for competitive bids, so that we can work through those documents and more custom tailor them for Avek's needs. So just wanted to give the board a heads up that we've are well on the way towards the incorporation of those new documents that we hope makes our public works documents fully compliant with prevailing laws, as well as tries to have language that are as legally favorable to us as possible. So just want to give you an update on that. So that's item number one. Item number two, on June 2nd, just last week, the Court of Appeal denied the state water contractor's petition for rehearing on the Delta Stewardship Council case, which is a published decision now. And that is a very important decision because that decision by the Court of Appeal had pretty broad language in terms of the broad sweep of the Delta Reform Act and the Delta Plan, as well as authority given to the Delta Stewardship Council on regulation of water agencies in California, as well as regulations with respect to allocations under the State Water Project. So it is a critical importance to us directly and indirectly, and so I suspect that the state water contractors will appeal that decision to the California Supreme Court. Then that's going to take several years of briefing before the California Supreme Court decides on those legal issues. But once again, that I don't know if any decision has been made for seeking a petition for review before the California Supreme Court. So we'll closely monitor that and report on that case as events develop. So those are the two items to report by me. Any questions?
On the forms that you restructured, this is Director Sourceable. On the forms that you restructured, I'm just hoping that they weren't made more cumbersome for the contractors to submit their proposals to us. I hate it when there's so much bureaucracy that people give up and don't want to give us bids.
That is a good point, and so that is something that I will work with staff in terms of based upon the local environment, what can be left in, or what should be taken out to make the documents seem as least onerous as possible. So I will, I and staff will keep that in mind in terms of trying to, streamline the documents as much as possible.
Great, I appreciate that. I think that's really important.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, item 13, request for future agenda items. Does anybody have any requests? Okay, moving on. Item 14, closed session. Do we have any reason to go into closed session tonight?
We do not.
Oh, okay, great. Okay, then, do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion. We adjourn. This is Keith.
This is Rob. I'll second the motion.
Roll call vote, please.
Gary Van Dam.
Yes.
Audrey Miller.
Yes.
Robert Paris.
Yes.
Destin Lane.
Yes.
Frank Donato.
Yes.
Dias.
Yes.
Kelly Sourceable.
Yes, and thank you, everybody.
Good night.
Night.
Good night.
Thank you.
Good night.
Bye.
Good night.
Thank you.